Hello everybody, this is Diane. I want to do another episode of what can we do with sewing patterns for junk journals today. I have a few things ready to work on, but let me show you the Mod Podge stuff that we started yesterday. I went ahead and did some more Mod Podging, and they're not done yet. I just put them on whatever their base is going to be. I love this one. These are from pattern instruction sheets. Yesterday we talked about the various components of a sewing pattern. You have the envelope, you have the instruction sheet, and you have the sewing, the tissue, the pattern tissue. So that's on a blue inventory tag. And these will have some collaging done on them. Here's a library pocket. This is a printable right here, but this is pattern tissue and instructions. Let me show you. I don't even know what this came out of, but it's a blue printed, or even almost purple printed, type fonted instruction in French. I don't know what it came with, but I love it. So that's on there. We did these. I did this one yesterday on the video, and then I did this one. This is a doll dress pattern, and this is that French tissue also. These are on just manila tags. These are from the same pattern for a robe, and I needed a little short one for this tag. And then these will go in the larger binder journal because these are big tags. I love that font. Now the Joann's has a line of simplicity items. Every season they come out with more stuff, all kinds of stuff. Stationery, makeup bags, little storage boxes, all kinds of stuff and they use this font on it, and the fabrics, which I have. I get to use some of those fabrics. So those are what I've got started so far on that stuff, and then I Mod Podged. These have the instructions on the background. It's just cardstock that I folded in half, and then an image from a pattern, a vintage pattern envelope. And I have a third one, and I don't know where I put it, but I flattened everything under heavy books last night. Everything that I Mod Podged was under heavy books last night, and they look nice and flat. Look at that. Looks great. And I have elements chosen for the collage on the cover of this one. But we're going to set that aside for now and work on some more ephemera pieces. Hopefully I'm going to turn up that other cover. I had it this morning, and it's only, it's not even noon yet, and I can't find it. It's been one of those mornings, I'll tell you. So, I have a few items that I made with the sewing tissue, the pattern tissue. This actually happens to be a little narrow pattern piece. You can see the border on both sides of it. It's a waistline stay or something like that. And so I cut it out and use that for a ruffle, but you don't have to have a little narrow piece like that. Not every pattern is going to have a piece like that. You can just cut a strip. And it doesn't have to be this long, certainly, because I'll have to be cutting this to use it, probably. No, certainly I will have to cut it. Which I probably should have sewn it in smaller sections, because it's got basting stitches down the center with my sewing machine. I just basted it down the center. Basting means you use the largest straight stitch, which makes it easy to take one of the threads. You leave your threads long on both ends, and you pull it, and then it gathers up the tissue. If you used a small stitch, you would not be able to do that. The problem is when I want to cut it to the right size, as soon as I cut that, some of the gathering will be lost. It will come undone, and I won't have a thread to pull it. So what I'll probably do is glue it down to the right length and then cut it, or sew it down and then cut it, because I didn't know how long I wanted it, so I just went ahead and sewed the whole thing. So that's a pretty easy thing you can do with the sewing tissue. Next I made this little Caddy Flower, little Shabby Flower. And I'm going to crumple it up more. I want it to be a lot more shabby than it is right now. But let me just show you how I made it. I'm looking for a piece of pattern tissue that I can use for this. I'll just take this, just any pattern tissue, and I folded it. So I have 4 layers. You can do more if you want to, because you can cut easily through that many layers of tissue. And I just took something round. I have this little jar in my room that I keep my glue bottle in. So I thought that was a good size. I just tipped it. I want some of the pieces to have printing on them, so that piece will be good. But they don't all have to. So I just put that down and traced around it with a pencil. Just did that a few times. Don't know what happened there. And then I cut around that. So that's easy. And it doesn't have to be perfect. These are Shabby Flowers. So I have some cut right here in front of me. I took, I don't even know, 5 or 6. Looks like 5. And I want one with some interesting printing on the top. So I like that one, I guess. Or that one. That one has French on it. A lot of the patterns have English and French. So I'm just going to take some and wad them up, crinkle them, crumple them. I'm sure you can figure out how to make it just by looking at what I did, or looking at the finished product. This one has some, well, that doesn't have a lot of printing on it. It's not like you're going to see a lot of the printing anyway, but you can see some. And one more. I'll just use a plain one on the bottom. So now they're a nice little shabby pile there. And then, of course, I'm going to add a button. But before I add the button, I want to add just a little snippet of fabric. I was looking for my little bits of fabric to choose one for this, and I saw this little pink doily, so I added that one there. So you can add fabric, you can add cheesecloth, you can add more than one layer of whatever it is. You could add, you know, cheesecloth and then a fabric or a little doily piece on top of that. Or you don't have to add anything, just sew a button on it. Just trying to get them more centered. And I'm going to choose a button. I like that one with a little flower on it. And I just took some little fabric pieces, and some of them I cut with pinking shears. This one was just this little odd shape, and I thought that would be cute just as it is. So I think I'll take this little one here and add that. It could even be smaller. And I'll just sew it. I'm going to come up through the bottom, through the buttonhole. I have white embroidery floss in this needle. I think it's only 3 ply. This one I had 6 ply. That's how it comes, with 6 ply. 6 strands of thread all wound together. But you can peel away some of the threads to get less you know, get a thinner ply, depending on what you're embroidering. But for this, I wanted the 6 ply. But this piece was already cut, so I'm just using it. And it doesn't really matter, as long as you have a nice, and it doesn't have to be really, really, you know, super secure, because you're just going to glue it to a page. So the glue will secure what you've done here. So that's enough stitches. I'm just going to kind of stitch through my stitches to secure it. And like I said, the glue will also secure it. Another way you can do it is to not put a knot in your thread and start at the top and then end up with both threads at the top and then tie them so you have a little bow there. So I might do that on the next one, but I'm not going to do any more on camera. So that's a really quick little embellishment you can make with the sewing tissue. And then this one will take more. You take a bigger piece of sewing tissue. You get so much sewing tissue if you have a bunch of patterns. You get a lot of sewing tissue. I think, since I have my thread knotted, my needle threaded is what I want to say, I am going to, I could do this without the needle, but it is easier with the needle. I'm just going to put the thread through the button. I always have to figure out if I want the thread to go in an X on top of the button. I have to figure out every time. So I went through, I came up through here. No, I went down through there so that the thread is on top. And now I'm going to come up through the one that's just above it. And then when I go down again, it'll make an X, because I'll go diagonal to that one. And then I'll come up there, and when I tie the knot, it'll be diagonal to those. I hope that makes sense. And it doesn't matter. It does not have to be diagonal. I didn't glue this on this little booklet yet because I wanted to have some thread in the button. Okay, now that's ready. I'm going to end up gluing that right here. So this is just a little booklet, and I didn't invent this. There are lots of ways you can do this, but I'm going to do it a simple way to show you, and then I'll talk about other variations. So it's just simply a large pattern piece, like a skirt or something like that. It's a big piece, and you just fold it. Fold it until you get it to the right size that you want, and then you can make a little booklet out of it. You could make it wider and then fold the flaps in and make them into little pockets on this side if you wanted to do that. And to decorate this one, I took some napkins, and these are what I was talking about, the simplicity items that Joann markets, Joann Fabrics. And Sarah sent these to me in a Happy Mail. So I just took one of each of the images and glued them down with a glue stick. And then I zigzagged all around the pocket, all around the page, the booklet. Sorry, oh my goodness. And then I just took some thin paper with a grid on it, and I took 3 sheets of it and cut it to size, and then just used my sewing machine to sew it in the middle. And I added the rickrack, and I will add the button. So let me just demonstrate. I have a piece right here, and it is a skirt piece. Now these are more difficult to use in some of the ephemera that you want to make because there is so much space with no printing on it. so it doesn't have a lot of interest. So I'm going to just fold it in half. And obviously there's more tissue on this end. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be an even piece. Just fold. And I'll fold this part down. And fold this in half this way. I hope this is going to work. I'm just kind of playing. Get it to the size I want. And I'll fold this down to make it more even. This is higher than that one, but that's okay. There's no specified size. It depends on the book you're putting them in. And well, here, let me do something different. What I did on the other book, to kind of hide these edges, I had them meet in the middle. So I folded it in the middle so I would know where the middle was. I creased it. And then fold this to the middle. And this to the middle. And now when I fold it again, these little edges are going to be tucked inside. It's going to make it a little more even. I didn't have to work this hard on the other one. I think it was not, I don't think the other one was a skirt, so it was more, it wasn't so unequally distributed. But you can make it work. Now it looks straighter across the top. There's a little tear there. I don't really care. This is coming out there. And it can be as messy as you want it to be. Okay? Because if you took a ruler, you would know that this isn't exactly even. So then I would sew all the way around here and then fold it to make a book. Or you can fold in some flaps on the side like that, and then fold it in the center. That's a big book. That's too big. So maybe this piece is too big for that. I know what we could do. Bring that in more, because there's a lot more tissue on this end than on this end. I hope you see what I'm doing. See, I'm just playing, and that's what you can do. Just fold and play until you get the desired result. So this would be the inside of the book. You could sew all around it, and then these would be little pockets. And then fold it this way. Okay? Another thing you can do is, if you don't have these flaps, if you just have it like this, you can add a pocket in here, or you could fold it so that there's a pocket there. I'd have to really play to figure that out. But I would probably just take one of those Mod Podge pieces that I did and add a pocket there, or anything. Lace, fabric, any kind of paper, make a pocket there. For this one, I added a little glassine bag and I put in a little vintage package of needles, and it's full. It's not even open. But it was way down in there, so I cut down the front part of the bag so you can actually get the needle book out. So I would sew around there, and I would have little pockets, like I said. And I might have to, on this one, let's put that piece that way. And that tucks away the skinny piece. So I have edges here that wouldn't get sewn in because when I do around the edges, because it's down too low, I would, you know, I would just sew that, make it messy. I can decorate the pockets then. And I love the crinkly little book you get. I hope this isn't making too much noise on the video. I have these little printable items. This, I don't know what printable this came with, but it's needles. And this is actually a button card that I have, and I made a copy of it. And I could decorate with that and maybe some lace behind it. So you'll see this finished booklet as we go through the project. Let me glue this button on before I lose it. I keep forgetting it's loose and I pick it up. I use glossy accents for gluing on buttons and metal pieces. And you have to be careful because it takes longer to dry. So you just set it aside and don't touch it for a little while. So I think these little booklets are going to be fun. And of course, embellish them any way you want to. There's all kinds of things you can do with your pockets and embellishments for these. You don't have to put pages in the center. If you just put, let's say this doesn't have the pockets. I'm just going to fold them back so they don't confuse us. Let's just say you had a book without the pockets. You could create your pockets and then have little booklets or tags or cards to write on inside so that you can actually use the book for journaling. But for this one I chose to put some pages in it. That's that one. And then the last project I was going to do today was collaging on the divider cards for the binder journal, and because I'm using some tissue for this. I showed this yesterday, gave you a sneak peek of it. I didn't prepare a piece. Well, here's a piece that's curved. I didn't try it with an uncurved piece. I just saw a collar piece and thought that would be great. So this is a belt, and it is uneven. It's thicker here than it is here. So I'm not sure how that would work, but the collar piece had the same thickness on both ends. But I'm just going to do a quick demonstration. I cut it out so that the piece was on the lines. Could cut this one. You could cut it so that they have the same thickness. If I fold it in half and then follow the thickness of this one to cut it. But I'm not going to do that right now. So all I did was just start pleating. I just pinched that there and folded it, and then pinched a little further ahead and folded it. And as I'm doing that, I'm kind of making sure it's curving, or maybe it does it on its own. I don't know. It's just curving because the paper itself is curved. And I just kept going until I had enough skirt. Now these images, like she has a tiny little waist, so, and I'm pleating this bigger than I did this one, just so I can show you. You can make your folds smaller by not moving forward so far when you pleat. and make sure you pleat all the way down. Get that crease all the way down. So it's a pleated skirt. Okay, and then I'm kind of pinching them together at the top. So I had more than I needed for her tiny little waist. This is a sewing pattern, a vintage pattern for blouses. So it didn't have the full body on the pattern. It had this much. So I cut her out. I cut her under her arm here so I could slip the skirt under there. And then I put some glue on the back of the tissue and glued it to the body, and then folded the tissue around and glued it on the back. And then well, before I glued it down, I sewed a little piece of ribbon to the top. And it's a little bit uneven. When you're all done, it won't be completely even up here, so I trimmed it with scissors to even it up, and then put the ribbon on it. And then you may have to trim a little more after you sew the ribbon on. And I have this piece. I already selected these. Go for that. These are supposed to be on that journal cover that I have misplaced. These are the pieces I selected for my divider card. I have a piece of the vintage sewing instruction. And then to kind of go with the color of her blouse, I chose this scrap of scrapbook paper, and I used pinking shears to cut it. I have an old pair of pinking shears I got at a flea market. They don't work on fabric, but I use them on paper. But I hardly ever use them because they're not very good, and it hurts my fingers to use it. But I have it handy for when I need it. There's another one that I used pinking shears on. And I thought I would add this button card because it kind of matches. And this isn't one of mine. This was a printable. I think this is from the Innkeeper. I forgot the name of her shop. Sue Olson. I'm sure. I thought I was going to put something down here. Maybe not. Maybe I had this here. I don't want this too close to her face, so down here is good. And then I will probably add some buttons or some other embellishment. I don't need to Mod Podge this. I'm just going to glue. So once I have my arrangement, I can see what is going to be on the bottom to glue first. I can use this for my glue sheet. I'm using Elmer's Craft Bond all-purpose. Oh, this one's extra strength. I should be using extra strength. I bought the all-purpose by mistake. Oh, I tore the corner. This is a very old and very fragile piece. This is the blueprinted one. think I'll switch to my liquid glue for these pieces. This is thicker than the other pieces I glued. I think I'll use this one. Cool thing about a binder journal is if you have a thick embellishment like buttons on, if I put buttons on here and I wanted to write on the page that was just in front of it, just take that card out, get those buttons out of the way. I just love these vintage pattern illustrations. I don't want this to get wrinkled and bent, so I am going to add some glue down here so it sticks down to the page instead of getting caught on things and getting pulled up. Once that's all dry, if I wanted to, I could sew around some of these pieces with my black thread. I don't know if I will, but it would add some interest. Or I could just sew around the border of the card, just for some interest. Maybe one button would be enough. Let me look for some rickrack or lace. I guess that doesn't show up enough. Maybe I just need white or lace. Maybe I don't need a button at all. I'll be right back. I like this vintage lace. Okay, I think we're going to go with that. By the way, it was Janet that sent me the fabrics that I talked about yesterday. I have to say, I had a really bad night the night before. I couldn't sleep till after 3:30. So I was pretty foggy yesterday, and I don't feel like I'm doing a whole lot better today. So I apologize, Janet. There's one divider card. I don't know how many I'm going to use. At least 4, probably. 3 or 4. So I'll have to do some more of those. But I think that's going to be it for our what to do with sewing patterns today. We did a lot of things with tissue. We made a little skirt for our pattern doll. We made a booklet. Or the beginnings of another booklet. We have some little flowers that are charming. Didn't think about adding one of these to that page. I'll add one of these to a page that doesn't have a patterned skirt on it. And we did a ruffle that I can add to any journal page. So I hope you found this fun and interesting, and I hope you will come back for the next video. I don't know what we'll be doing in the next video, but I have more things planned for these journals. So yeah, come on back. And I will see you in the next video, and I hope you have a creative day today. Bye-bye.